is everybody back?
Everybody was here, I just moved.
Yeah,
What?
Rob?
How we doing? Ready to go?
Just a sec here.
Okay. I've been active in political life of Vermont for the last 16 years. And as I look back on the issues which have concerned me, and there are many, many of them, and I've probably spoken out on every issue that there are two issues, I think, that I have tried to develop and speak out as forcefully as I can on, because I think that perhaps they are the most paramount issues facing our state and facing society in general. One issue, which is clearly the most important issue facing civilization, is whether or not the human race is going to survive, or whether or not we're going to turn our planet into a desert through a nuclear war, and whether or not we're going to continue allowing millions of people to die unnecessarily because of stupid wars, and whether civilization is going to continue with the irrationality of war. The issue of war and peace, I think, to any sane human being, has got to be the most important issue facing society. And this is an issue I personally have spoken on 16 years, and obviously many other people have as well. And then there's another issue. There's an issue of economic justice, which is the right of working people to earn decent wages, to have protection on the job, to have strong unions who can stand up to powerful corporations to protect their interests, the rights of working people when they retire, to have decent retirement benefits, to have decent health care, and basically the rights of working people to enjoy a decent standard of living. This, to me, also is an issue of extraordinary importance. And those are the two issues. The issues of war and peace and the issues of economic justice are two issues that for 16 years I have been speaking out on as strongly as I can. During the last week, a series of events have occurred in Burlington which have concerned me very much, because I see a division occurring within our community, our extraordinary community, a community that I am very proud of. A division occurring between, on one hand, those people who are working very, very hard on the issues of peace and in opposition to the illegal and immoral war against Nicaragua, and on the other hand, working people who are in fact are in an excellent union. The International Union of Electrical Workers is a fine and progressive union which is doing an excellent job trying to protect the interests of workers at GE and in other places around the country. And I am concerned very much that a counterproductive effort is going on, which in fact is going to hurt both sides in the long run. There are some people, I think a tiny percentage, maybe 0.1%, who have the idea that the workers at GE who go in to earn their day's wages, who are like everybody else in our community, who are like the people who work on Church Street or at UVM or for the media, ordinary people, that somehow or another, because they happen to work at GE, they are criminals. They are murderers. They are just terrible, awful people. I would say about 0.1% of the people active in the peace movement believe that. Last year, for example, there was a piece of literature sent out around the city. I don't know how many of them were distributed. I don't know who distributed it, which in fact refers to workers at GE as killers and suggests that we should have violence at GE to get even with what's going on in Nicaragua. A total piece of garbage, a piece of stupidity, and a piece of literature which does nothing but try, in fact, to split our community up. Okay? I think that there are some workers at GE, perhaps, who have the conception that the issue of peace is not an important issue. And to those people, I say you're wrong. The people throughout the state of Vermont, the people in the city of Burlington, in my view, overwhelmingly understand that the issue of war and peace is of extraordinary importance, and that we've got to move forward vigorously in that area, or else we're not going to have a planet in which GE kids will be raised. The kids belong to GE workers or anybody else's kids. Okay. What I see my role in is bringing together the two sides as best we can to fight together for our common interests. When the workers of GE are obliged to go on strike, and of course they have in the past, GE itself is one of the major anti-union corporations in America, they are going to look to the communities at large all over America for help. When workers are fighting in Washington for support for progressive legislation to protect their interests, they're going to need the community at large and not just the trade union movement to help them. And it's important that the non-trade union people in our city respond to their legitimate cries and needs. At the same instance, if we are going to be successful in bringing together a peaceful world and having a sane foreign policy, if anybody in the peace movement believes that we are going to be bringing about the kinds of changes that we need in Washington to develop that policy, if people in the peace movement think that's going to be done without the strong, active participation of the trade union movement, they are very mistaken. The reason, in fact, that we have reactionaries thriving in Washington, such as the President of the United States, the President who has a policy regarding war and peace, which is a disaster and strongly opposed by the people in the peace movement, the President who has a policy regarding workers' rights and unions, which are a disaster for the trade union movement and are being opposed by trade unionists all over the country. The reason that people like Reagan can survive, in fact, is because of these splits within the progressive movement. My feeling is, and my very strong feeling is, that if we are going to be successful, the trade union movement is going to have to sit down and talk to those people concerned about peace and vice versa. Now, the fact of the matter is, there are many people in the trade union, including Mr. Bywater, who is president of the International Union of Electrical Workers, who are active in the labor movement and also concerned about the issues of Central America. If peace people think that the IUE is some kind of reactionary organization and a group of warmongers, they're very mistaken. And what I intend to do, as much as I can, is to bring these two groups together. Regarding General Electric, the corporation, there's another point that I want to make. I am outraged by the attempt of the management of General Electric to manipulate the situation to their own political advantage. General Electric, like many other large corporations in the state of Vermont, happens not to be great fans of the progressive movement or Bernie Sanders in general. Why? Well, obviously good reasons. General Electric has been successful with their friend President Reagan in creating a tax structure which for a number of years, this gigantic corporation, which makes billions of dollars in profit, paid no taxes at all. It's a great deal. I don't believe in that type of tax structure. I believe in a progressive tax structure. GE, at least the management of GE, doesn't like that. Here in the city of Burlington, for example, GE today is appealing a tax assessment from the city of Burlington which would ask them to pay their fair share of taxes. As many people know, GE went down by over $100,000 in the amount of property taxes they were paying to the city of Burlington because of reappraisal. Well, they want to go down even further so that homeowners and residential people will have to pay more taxes. Well, we're not going to give in to that. We're going to fight them on that issue. In terms of the electric rate design, General Electric undoubtedly is not very happy that we've developed a rate design here which would give the residential ratepayers in the city of Burlington a break. Unfortunately, asking large industrial and commercial owners to be paying more. Okay? General Electric historically has been an anti-union firm. I am a strong believer in unions. So I think General Electric's interest is very clear. They want to get involved in local politics and attack what we're doing here in the city of Burlington. The thrust of what I am saying is this, that if we are going to survive as a progressive city, as a dynamic city, people are going to have to work together, especially those people who have common interests. And in my view, the workers of General Electric, the people who are concerned about the issues of war and peace, do have common interest, and we're going to have to work together. I will be asking the leadership and members of the IUE at GE to come to my office to meet with people who've been active in the peace movement to see if we can work out a common agenda. I do not want to see the continuation of this hostility. I will be writing a letter, which I hope will be finished tomorrow, to GE, asking my friends there in the management to distribute it, to give me the courtesy of distributing it to the workers in the same way that they distributed their letter to all of the workers, because their letter contained many inaccuracies. But again, I am not going to sit idly by and see the community split when in fact people should be working together.
Bernie, I asked the workers at GE yesterday, I said, you know, that the mayor charges this is politically motivated, that it's, and the head of the, Terry Parker said, who's the head of the union, he said, no, it's not. He said, you know, this is something that we feel very strongly about, and it was not inspired by management.
My impression is that the letter was written by management. And again, I am a little bit disappointed because I spoke with one of the fellows in the union and had hoped that we could have a meeting before there was a press conference, and we'll make that invitation again. And I certainly, as some of you may recall, during the special meeting on the Board of Aldermen that we had, I invited, and it was a sincere invitation, I'm going to extend it again. I want the people, the workers from GE, to come to City Hall and give us their point of view. I think that that's a healthy development, and we extend open arms for them to come in. But essentially, it is not good for anybody. It is not good for the workers at GE who are fighting for their lives economically to alienate large numbers of people in our community who are concerned about the issue of war and peace. It is not good for the peace movement, which is going to need allies in the trade union movement in their fight against Reagan's disastrous policies to alienate the trade union people. Now, there may be a few people on both sides who really are not concerned about how the other people feel. I think that they are in the minority.
Bernie, a lot of people in the active peace movement around here, I've talked to many of them, not just whoever's behind that, I suppose that's Nick Velvet, I don't know. But a lot of them are very dissatisfied with your position on GE over the past couple of years, stemming from that
That's right.
person. How do you suppose you came to be in this fairly awkward situation?
I'll tell you how.
Where the peace movement is mad at you, the union is mad at you, the management, which doesn't surprise anyone, is mad at you. Everyone's mad at you about it.
Good. That's a good question. Being the mayor, sometimes when you wake up in the morning and you know that you're the mayor of a city, it's not a pleasant job, just for that issue, because you're trying to balance competing forces. I think, to tell you the truth, that there's going to be a positive result out of all of this. I think that many of the people, or at least some of the people, and I think it's a minority, or maybe a loud minority, of the peace movement who somehow think that workers are Neanderthal warmongers who have nothing else to do but think about how to go about killing people. I think they may learn out of this that workers are human beings. Okay? That because somebody has to go out and make a living and they happen to work at GE rather than being a professor at the University of Vermont, you know, that those people are not inferior human beings. They're not stupid human beings. They are entitled to dignity and they are entitled to respect. And they are not responsible for the foreign policy of the United States government. Ronald Reagan and the United States Congress are. And I think maybe out of all of this will become the understanding, especially if we can develop a dialogue between the workers and the rest of this community, which I hope will happen. I can't guarantee it will happen. I hope it will happen. I think something positive may happen. And I think on the other hand, Andy, I think that if the workers at General Electric understand that we are in a city and in a state which takes the peace movement very seriously, which does not want to forever continue to produce guns and bombs all over this world, but someday hopes that we're going to live in a planet where we're not spending $300 billion on the military, I think it's important for the workers to understand that as well. So you're right. I am in a difficult position. I am caught in the middle. And my feeling is, and I felt this all along, my politics are in fact different than many people's. All right? I believe if there's anything that has to be accomplished, if this government in the United States is going to work, if we're going to bring about the society that we want, is you cannot say to millions and millions of workers, we don't care about you, we think you're dumb, we're not concerned about your livelihood. Okay? And I think to a large degree around the United States, that's what's happened. And that is precisely why Ronald Reagan ends up becoming the President of the United States. And what we have tried to do, as you know, in Burlington for the last 5 years, with great difficulty, I mean, let's be honest about it, with great difficulty, and almost uniquely in our country in terms of local government, is forge a coalition of workers, of poor people, of people who are concerned about the issue of war and peace, people concerned about the issue of women's rights. And sometimes these people go off in different directions.
Bernie, this has been going on for years. I mean, I've been here 4 years and there's been this fissure. How come only now do you try to sort of bridge the gap? Because this has been a conflict and you've been under attack since, what, 83 was the first big civil disobedience down there at the gate. What took
Well, I think recently this issue has heated up. It is not necessary because there are 3 people or 5 people who disagree with me on an issue that I've got to respond totally. I mean, you know, people disagree with me on everything. I think what I'm concerned about now is what I see the real development of a division within our community. Okay, now, for example, and I think there was some confusion about this, When I said I support protests against the contrary, that's true. But no one should suggest, just because the general manager of GE suggests that somehow I'm responsible for the demonstrations of GE, that's a lie. That's not true.
The workers said that, wait a minute though, Bernie, you call a protest, you know when people protest in the city, especially against contra aid, anything to do with Central America, first place they go is GE.
But that's not my responsibility. I mean, there's another point that has to be raised in here. I mean, we could raise, and one of the problems that I know I have with your television there is that it's hard to get complex issues into the 14 seconds, okay? And the issue is, I am not a dictator, okay? I do not choose to be a dictator. When the workers on GE go out on strike, and if they put up advisory pickets all over the city of Burlington, they're not going to want me to say, you can't go there, you can't go there. They want the Constitution of the United States to be respected. They want their freedom to protest to be respected, and that's a basic right too. I cannot tell, and I will not tell anybody, whether they agree with my point of view or that they don't, that you can't protest here, you can't protest there. The sidewalks belong to the people, and if protests and pickets are done legally, people have a right to do that. If people choose civil disobedience and getting arrested, they have to pay the penalty, and the Burlington Police Department arrests people who breaks the law. Now, the question is, do I think in the long run it is a good tactic, it is a productive tactic to change in terms of trying to change American foreign policy in Nicaragua, which I strongly believe needs to be changed? Do I think it's a good and productive tactic to go jumping over fences in GE? The answer is I do not. I think in many instances it is counterproductive, because it ends up turning off people who, everything being equal, also are opposed to contra aid in Nicaragua. I'm not convinced, for example, that a majority of the workers at GE are not opposed to contra aid. I think the president of the union might very well be, nationally at least, might be opposed to the contra aid. The question is, how do we bring people together around common interests, not how do we divide people up? So if you're asking me, is it an intelligent tactic? No, I do not think so. If people choose to do it, what am I supposed to do? Am I a dictator? Do I throw away the United States Constitution? Does anyone suggest that I should do that? The answer is, I will not do that, of course.
If the GE the management won't distribute your letter to the workers, what would you do? Would you hand it out?
Yes, I would. No, I would. That's right.
They did distribute it to all the workers, though.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding.
Their letter they distributed.
That's correct. And I mean, again, I think what you have here is an issue of a very large corporation, a major employer in the city, really jumping in and exploiting a situation for their own political purposes, okay? And I think maybe behind their motives might be some other factors, and that is that they would like to pay less in taxes, they would like to see residential ratepayers pick up more of the burden than GE. They're disturbed maybe that I'm speaking out on the horrendous tax policy which exists, which allows GE on a national level, and I expect on a state level, to be paying very, very little in taxes, while working people are being paid too much. And the management of GE may say, hey, this is a good opportunity. Let's get Bernie Sanders. Let's get the progressive movement. Well, we're not going to take it lying down. We're not going to allow them to do that with impunity. We're going to respond forcefully.
You have a lot of supporters in GE, I'm sure, among 4,000 workers. Are you apologizing to the workers for the actions of some of the other protesters?
I cannot apologize to anybody for anything. I mean, there's been a history, for example, when you have strikes. Okay? Occasionally, there are acts of violence done by a few. Okay? You don't blame everybody for that. I cannot accept responsibility because it's not mine to accept. If people tomorrow choose to go and demonstrate in front of GE, they have that constitutional right. GE workers, as good trade unionists, understand that people have to have the right to protest their point of view. And in the city of Burlington, we believe in the United States Constitution, and we're going to support that right. I can't apologize for something that somebody else does. No, I won't apologize for that. People have the right to do that.
Terry Parker says it's not the legal demonstrations that upset him, and it's not the legal demonstrations that upset the workers, and it's not the legal demonstrations that they want you to condemn. They want you to condemn the civil disobedience, the lying down in front of trucks, the fence jumping. And that's what they were outraged that you would not condemn, because they felt by not condemning that, you're condoning it.
But that's unfair to say. I mean, it is unfair to somebody to say because you don't condemn, you're condoning. But I have said that as a tactic, if as a tactic we manage to alienate significant numbers of people in our community who should be our allies in fighting for peace and social justice, if that tactic brings about that result, I think it's a stupid, destructive tactic. And that's what I am saying.
But Bernie, they say they feel intimidated. They feel threatened that these people are jumping the gates and handing out things like, smash the death shot. And they feel like you as mayor are not protecting them by not taking a strong stand against it.
This stuff here is garbage. It is insulting. And if I were a worker at GE, I would be outraged. Okay. But I asked people in GE and elsewhere to understand that we do have freedom of expression in the United States of America. I condemn this as strongly as I can. I think that any action which manages to antagonize and insult and alienate large numbers of working people who are our natural allies in the fight for a decent and just society is plain stupid. Okay, it is a stupid political tactic. But if tomorrow somebody chooses to do something out of their own free will, I can't stop it. I do not control the activities of 38,000 people in the city of Burlington or 500,000 people in the state of Vermont. People have got to understand that. You know, if there's a strike, for example, and some trade unionist on a picket line gets into an act of violence, should I apologize to other people in the city of Burlington? I can't be responsible for that either. All that I am saying is I am upset that I see a division in our community between two groups of people who need each other, who should be working together. And I see the reactionaries and the billionaires and the millionaires who are behind a disastrous foreign policy, which is hurting this country, who are behind a disastrous policy toward unions and working people, which is hurting this country. They're sitting back and laughing. They're saying, that's great. Isn't that wonderful? We're seeing people concerned about peace fighting with people concerned about economic justice. Boy, I hope that that really continues. That's great. And what I will do is everything in my power to bring those groups together. Whether we'll be successful or not, time will tell.
Bernie, when have you drafted this letter? When do you send it? When do we?
I hope to get it out tomorrow, Andy. I mean, I've just been.
Have you written it yet?
I've written about half of it.
Do you hope, Mayor, that the meetings you hope to have between some of the local peace activists and the GE workers can produce a truce of some sort?
I hope, again, Jim, when you have many people who want to do anything, we don't live in a dictatorial society. I think you're not going to get anything where everybody is in agreement on it. Can I tell you that there's not going to be somebody jumping over the fence at GE tomorrow, no matter what anybody in the peace movement may say? Okay? I can't say that, but I certainly hope, what I certainly hope is that there is an understanding. And I believe absolutely that this garbage is put out by 1/10% of the people who are in the peace movement. And what ends up happening, GE workers see this and they said, oh my God, this is horrible. This is frightening. It is. It's disgusting crap. Designed, in fact, in my view, to do exactly antagonize and insult and alienate workers from GE from the rest of the community. And, yeah.
Some people in the peace movement say that, wait a minute, they're making Gatling guns there, they're making Vulcan guns. I mean,
Right.
they're not making toasters in Burlington.
Right.
And that, in a sense, by taking the stand you are, you're managing to have your political cake and eat it too.
Well, I know. And that mentality is why the progressive movement is at 2% in the United States of America. Okay, and I disagree with that tactic. I would say that the same argument is that there should be a picket line in front of Channel 3 because of the tremendous amount of misinformation that comes about Nicaragua from CBS or NBC or ABC or the University of Vermont. What does the University of Vermont with $150 million do to bring about a world of peace and justice? Damn little. I would say it would be just as justified to have a picket line at UVM to demand that they play an active role in our community for peace and justice. The point that I am making, and I've made it 20 times and I'll make it for the 21st time, because somebody goes out to earn a living and feed his or her family, okay, to do a job, does not make them, in my view, a criminal. You point the finger at those people who are responsible for the policies. If GE was shut down tomorrow, the United States policy in Nicaragua goes on. The Gatling submachine guns will be produced in California and North Carolina, and those states would be delighted to have it. 2,000 workers here would be laid off who would be very, very bitter. The goal is to change national policy. So long as the United States government wants Gatling machine guns, they're going to be produced. And they're going to be produced at Burlington, they're going to be produced in Alabama or California. They're going to be produced. Our job in the progressive movement is to stop a policy which is at war in Nicaragua, which is adventurous all over the world, and to develop a peaceful world and a national reconversion policy. You got millions and millions and millions of workers involved in the defense industry. And it is a real challenge to figure out how we're going to convert a war economy into a peace economy. And we've all got to work on it. But do I see it as an intelligent tactic to antagonize and fight against local workers who should be on our side? I see it as counterproductive. And I see that the people who gain out of that are the reactionaries who are delighted to see a split within the progressive movement. And many of us on the national level, yesterday, for example, I got a call. And unfortunately, I think I'm not going to be able to do it. I got a call from some people. There is a committee of trade unionists and other people concerned about the peace movement. But trade unionists, the International Association of Machinists, very active in the peace movement. United Electrical Workers, the International Union of Electrical Workers, president himself is on a committee concerned about what's going on in Central America. Okay? Trade unionists all over the country have that concern. The war in Vietnam was stopped, in my view, when the trade union movement itself became involved in that effort to stop the war. That's when the real momentum developed. Okay? So again, I repeat, and I think there are some people who don't know it. Some people say, I am outraged about what's going on in Nicaragua. Okay? And they feel the sense of personal outrage. And they say, I want to express my outrage. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to protest the GE. It may be a good cathartic effect for the individual. But I think in terms of the overall goal of changing United States policy, we are not going to change the policy until you get rid of Reagan and his friends in Washington. That's how you're going to change the policy. That's how you're going to end the war in Nicaragua. That's how you're going to have an intelligent economic policy in this country. That, in my view, maybe I'm wrong, but in my view, is not going to happen until the trade union movement consists of millions and millions of workers, peace people, the vast majority of our people get together behind the movement. And I am not sympathetic to activities which split that movement apart.
Ernie, has GE ever, through their officials, or ever communicated to you what might be called a threat, threatening to pull out of Burlington?
No.
Okay. Second, do you have any information or even a suspicion to believe that this letter is also a product, perhaps, of political opponents here in Burlington that are not GE workers, but who may have used contacts there to maybe say people who didn't make that meeting at the Board of Aldermen?
Well, the thought has dawned on me that I am running for governor. That thought has occurred to me, but I don't have any specific information. My thought is that basically, as I indicated, like many large corporations around the state, I am not one of their favorite people. And I think GE sees the opportunity to exploit that situation and try to turn people off against the progressive movement.
So are you saying that there's a concerted effort on their part to...
What I'm saying is what I said, is I think you have GE, who is not happy with many of the policies that we have developed here in the city of Burlington in terms of asking them to pay their fair share of property taxes. They would much prefer to pay less. After all, last year, as a result of reappraisal, they paid less than $100,000 less than they previously paid. But they're appealing that. They would like to pay even lower. Well, we're fighting that appeal. They're paying more in electric rates now because we developed a rate design which would give the residential ratepayers a break. They have a tax policy that exists which on the federal level, until very recently, at least, they were paying zero in taxes. It's a great policy. Well, people like myself who believe in progressive taxation think that if you make billions of dollars in profit, you should be paying something. So what I am saying is, here is GE with the situation, who sees somebody as mayor of the city and in Burlington, and a political movement which is opposed to the interests of very large and powerful corporations. And I think what they are trying to do is seize this particular opportunity to turn workers and other people in our community around against the administration here in Burlington. That's what I say. More than that, I just don't know. I can't say.
Bernie, have you talked to either Jerry Tebow or Terry Parker from the union?
Yes, I have. I did talk to
Since
Jerry.
yesterday?
No, I have not. We have calls in there, and we have not gotten a response, which concerns me. And again, I hope that they feel comfortable. The guys in the union feel comfortable with either coming in here or I can go out there and we can talk.
Evidently they don't. I mean, they held a press conference.
Yes. That's, I mean, once again, I think that that's sad. This door is open, especially open to the people in the trade union movement. And we're happy to meet in any place and any time. I can't force them to do that.
Bernie, do you believe GE management is going to try to urge other corporations to speak out against things like this?
I don't know that.
What did you think of the editorial in the Free Press today? You mentioned Channel 3 should be picketed in UVM.
No, I didn't mention the point that I was making. Again, the problem, as you know, that I have with the media is that on complicated issues when you have, and it's not a criticism of anybody here, when you have 20 seconds of time, nobody can put them into a point here. And the point that I made is, if we're sitting here, and if people are concerned about the state of the world, if many of us are concerned that our kids are not going to grow up and live a normal life because there's a nuclear war, you say, who's to blame? Let's blame somebody. Who do we want to blame? Why is there a policy in this country which is producing more and more nuclear weapons, which is increasingly antagonistic to the Soviet Union, which is trying to destroy Nicaragua? How do we change that policy? Who's the fault? Well, people can say, well, the guys at GE were producing machine guns. Maybe. I don't think so. Who helps cultivate public opinion, for example? Has the media done, in my opinion, nationally, an adequate job in informing the people of what goes on in Central America or the Third World? The answer, I think, is unquestionably no. I think it would be just as justified, more justified, to say, and of course it's a national problem, CBS here picks up what they sent from New York, to say to the media, we demand that you allow more objective coverage of what's going on in the world. That instead of having 50 commercials every hour, you give people a chance to talk and see what's going on in Central America. Is that a fair, is looking at the media and the corporate-owned media a fair target of criticism? Of course it is. You have a university up here which makes has $150 million budget. That's a tremendous amount of money. Hundreds and hundreds of professors on tenure. Do people say, what is that institution doing to make a better world, a better state? Are they really doing all that they can do? Is the president of the University of Vermont, presumably one of our intellectual leaders in this state, and I don't mean to be disparaging to Dr. Gore, it's no different in other 49 states. Is the university playing the role that they should be playing in our community, going out, really educating people? Do I think they are? No. Why not? I don't know. I mean, we can point the finger at any one of a number of agencies. I think, unfortunately, the GE workers have become the brunt because they're the ones with the end product. But I think you can make the case that in New York City, CBS and NBC and ABC are quite as responsible. But that was the point. You understand my point?
Well, you wouldn't get on that, as you expressed that opinion repeatedly lately about the media. No, I don't think many people in this room would disagree with you.
But what bothers me, it's a deep issue. And again, it's not going to get on your 13 seconds. Is that it's easy to pick a target. For example, what I am disturbed about, if we're concerned about the war in Nicaragua, why did nobody go to the governor and say? And I don't, I'm running for governor, I understand that and so forth and so on, but you'll have to trust me, that's not what the motive is here. Why does anyone go to the governor and the legislature and say, let's call a special session? Let's see what the impact, to study the impact of the war in Nicaragua on the future of the state of Vermont. Is it going to cost us $50 million? We know that this year it's $100 million, next year it's going to be $200 million, and how many years are the kids from Vermont going to go out and get killed in Nicaragua? Let's have a special session. Let's discuss that issue. Let's call up the New York State legislature, the Massachusetts legislature. Let's start developing grassroots. Let's invite. Do you think we couldn't get 5,000 people to Montpelier for a special session? I think you could. No, but that's something that nobody is thinking about.
Would you propose that?
Sure, I would propose that.
Would you propose it now?
But I think it would be an excellent idea if the governor did that. But again, the point is, what I'm saying is, it is very easy to say, we're angry about Nicaragua. There is the enemy, the workers at GE. And what I am suggesting is, if we want to change the policy, we've got to broaden our movement, not split it apart. So, all right, it's again, I appreciate the difficulty here, and as you know, sometimes I have problems with the media, is that you're dealing with a complicated issue. And I trust that you will treat it as best that you can. Thank you very much.
Bernie, I'm going to give you a minute and 20 seconds.
A minute and 20 seconds, Andrew. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. I would like to. Yes, you can. Now, if I were a worker at GE and I picked up that thing, I would be outraged, frightened, disgusted.
This also scared the pants off Bill Burke to think there was information coming out.
I don't know what it did, but
Yeah, this is the one from last year.
yes, that's right. That's right.
What?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
The letter they sent to Bernie.
Everybody have one of these?